This is the Educational Triage Podcast. Welcome. We invite you to come along with us on an exploration of interviews, issues, and other exciting and relevant topics in education, especially alternative education. They say alternative education is a laboratory for mainstream education. Why? Well, join us every week and listen in as Philip Summers
Aloha.
and I, Tony Hunt, jump in feet first to discuss issues that may affect our classes, students, communities, as well as our teaching. Please subscribe if you enjoy and find relevance in what you experience here. And if you haven't left a quick review, please do. We appreciate your candor and insights so we can improve as we move forward. Now, let's see what's on board today. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Educational Triage Podcast. This is Tony. And of course, we have the wonderful, vibrant, brilliant Philip Summers.
Aloha. Hiya.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Okay.
I'm kind of stoked about today's topic. It was fun.
Well, you know, the weird thing is that there are so many people in education who are so gung-ho, and they are so convinced that everything that they do is for the better good, that they lack any form of self-awareness. They don't really see the impact, and they're not able to understand the consequences because they are so, what's the word? They have blinders on.
Slotted into the task they believe to be the true and the best one.
Yeah, it's a form of myopia, I think. So
I think it is too. Yeah.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Well, I just come across this philosophy I was reading the other day, and the question was asked that you should ask yourself is, what if I'm wrong? And I patted myself on the back because I've thought that for many years now. What if I'm wrong? And it keeps me honest. Like, okay, I know I like this a lot, but what if I'm wrong? What if it's not this? What if it's that? Things like that. I think we're talking about people who don't check that too often.
But I believe that there are so many people who are in administration now, people who are delving into curriculum, those people who are making policies who don't have that. They believe that that is a demonstration of lack of self-confidence.
Yeah, I could see that.
And I have some examples that we can go into.
Yeah, I'd love to hear them because it's the opposite. I mean, the ability to self-examine and look at your actions, how they have effects on others is a wise thing to do. Not at all the person who lacks confidence.
Yeah, well, it's really discouraging, and it has to do with the first thing that I have here on our list of ways that education can be seen as a cesspool of hypocrisy. So let's dig in. Preaching creativity while enforcing rigidity. Now, I remember years ago, and this is back in many years ago, let's just say when I was in college, I was in a course called Creative Dramatics. And basically what it was going out to schools and working with students and trying to open up their minds. And one thing I learned, and I still believe it today, is that we work so hard to shut down the creative nature of children because we supposedly need to be getting them into compliance, complacency. They all need to be believing the same core things that we don't allow them to be creative. We don't allow them the freedom to see things from different points of view.
Yeah, we were talking about that, like just testing. Testing is the outcome. We're looking at what outcomes we want, and so by its very nature, we're gearing everything we do toward the outcome that's predetermined.
Right.
There's no creativity to it. Yeah.
And the one thing is, and we've talked about different instances where students have come up with things that are incredibly outlandish for
Yeah,
answers. For example, the students who were convinced that the British won the Revolutionary War. Um,
I remember
but
that one.
but as an instructor, it's our job to work with them and to understand the why. Why do you believe
Yeah,
that? And through that process, we're still learning because we have to be lifelong learners, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And if
That's
you
the key there.
and if you counter somebody by saying, my degree is in this, and so I have a much better understanding, or I'm an expert in this because I have a master's doesn't mean that you're an expert. Even if you have a PhD or a doctorate, that doesn't mean that you're an expert in something. It means that you understand better or more
Hmm.
fully whatever it
True.
is. But we need to continue to be creative. Scientists have to be creative. Otherwise, if a
Hmm.
scientist wasn't
Yeah,
creative, how would Hooke have found the cells?
absolutely. How would we have found, the Higgs boson? I mean,
Right,
it's incredibly
curiosity.
creative. Yeah, big time curiosity and lots of failure.
Hmm.
Lots
And
of
it
failure.
and it
Yeah.
seems as though we kind of don't allow that. And somebody will say, and some of you
Mm,
listening will
yeah.
say, well, there's a time and a place. Well, when is that time? What is that place? And why is that even relegated? Why
Yeah.
why can't the art of education, because I believe education is an art, um,
Yeah.
why can't that take on all kinds of inputs from all directions? Somebody might be able to solve a math problem, get the right answer. Maybe it's not exactly the way that
Mhm.
you see it,
Right.
but they have their own understanding. And if that method works for them and it continues to work,
Yeah.
because it's not just a one off, then why can't they continue with that? Maybe that's a strong suit that they have. They see things from that point of view.
Yeah. It's interesting. They create this bubble and then they prepare us for the real world. Yeah. It's like, okay, so the school's like structured very soundly, very rigidly in preparation for a world that's ever changing and is sort of obfuscated all the time. It's like it's totally different environments altogether.
It's true. It's true. And we're going to get a little bit more into whether or not schools actually
Um,
prepare us for the outside world, or if
yeah.
it's just kind of like this little nest and they are the nestlings. Now, I said that
Mhm, yeah.
I would bring up some examples of people who can't see because they believe that they are right. There was somebody I know
Yeah.
very close to me who created some curricula, and they had presented it to a group of educators, and
Mhm.
these were not all the right people to be judging the curriculum, simply because they didn't have any real understanding of the standards and how things worked, what the canon was, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I
So,
see.
so when the person presented everything, one person jumped up and just exclaimed, "This is crap." And
Wow.
everybody sort of
Ouch.
took a step back and said, "Why do you say that?" Well, because why should students have to read this? And so that the person who developed everything went on and explained, well, this is part of the canon that the students have to go with. That's there. Now, if something else comes up, then they can do that. But there are so many things that are relevant to the time, to the place, as well as
Hmm.
what's happening today. And that's how the entire lesson progresses, is connecting it to what's going on today as well as what happened then. No, that's not what literature is about. Literature should be very forthcoming, and it should be ABC. And I'm not interested in reading that. To which the person who developed everything said, "What is the last book you read?" Well, they read a book of facts, and it was within the last 5 years. So it was nonfiction, is what I should have said. An administrator
Yeah,
came
it's
in and
nonfiction.
said almost the same thing. And this person in the group was, and I felt bad for them, said, I don't know that you are the best people to be judging this, because one, you're not going to be using it. Two, you don't understand, because these all have to meet the standards. And these do meet the standards. So these are being presented to you as what will be rolling out. And they both threw a temper tantrum. The rest of the group said, "This is perfect." And the other two
Mm.
went on a little mission to try to undercut what was happening. And it was just very, very interesting to see, because that one person didn't really teach anything. They were on an administrative track.
Yeah.
And so that's all they cared about, was getting up to the administrative track. So their
I was
thing
going to
was
ask
to
about that.
show how
Yeah.
much they could throw somebody under the bus if they could.
And the person who's presenting the curriculum was a teacher.
Yes.
Okay, but that's what I thought. That's a glaring hypocrisy. Like we spoke about that administration, they're trained in being middle managers. They're not
Yeah.
trained as teachers. They have nothing to do with the instruction of a student. They have everything to do with the inner workings and running a school district, possibly, but
Right.
they have no professional status when it comes to saying what's good curriculum, what's bad curriculum. They don't know. And
Because
they're
they,
put in a position of being judge of that. It's insane. Yeah.
well, the interesting thing is that, and to that point, but also giving a little bit of giving them a wider berth, I suppose, is that when you become
Hmm.
an administrator, you sort of lose touch with that element, and you don't see it as much.
Yeah.
So, yes, you lose touch with the students, you lose
Yeah.
touch with what it is, what the purpose, the actual purpose is,
Hmm.
what's the mission of the school or the company, so to
Yeah.
speak, that they are managing. So, okay,
Correct.
let's move on to teaching independence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, do you
Teaching
have something else that
independence.
you want to throw in?
No, I was just teaching independence, and I was going to ask you for your pass. You're independent now. Where's your pass? Oh man,
So,
it's
what do you
like
think
they
about,
tell you
do
now
we
you're old
teach
enough to know better.
independence?
Where's your pass?
Do we teach
Oh,
independence?
no, I do not think we do because we don't model it in
Tell me
the
more.
mainstream schools. Well, the status quo is very important to many students, be it social, be it academic. The testing model predicts the outcomes, so we're all trying to meet the outcomes. The schedule, bells ring, and we go from one place to another. It's like, okay, I mean, I guess it's independent if you want to be securely scheduled everywhere you go. I don't see a lot of independence. After school, there's an awful lot. Sports is a big outlet for that, but in school, it's very formal. It's very, I can't talk to you right now. I have to be in my third period class, that kind of thing.
So, you're saying that
It's just
students have a
not,
lack of agency.
yeah, there's a total lack of agency. They can't really assert any independence within the schedule and then the lack of agency as well. So, yeah,
Why do you
it's
think
not
that
set
is?
up for them to do that. Well, the schedules, it's just we still run the school, on strict schedules. I've taught on schedules that were like from 4 to 7:30 at night. And, I've
Hmm.
done afternoon programs. So it was only 3.5 hours a day kind of thing.
Hmm.
And that had a different flavor to it. But, when you go into a high school, it's first period, second period, third period, or block, lunch, It's the same thing every day. It's a grind kind of thing. And that makes you dependent on the system.
But let's let's take a look
Not
at
much room.
going back to number one. Let's be a
Yeah.
little creative and let's
Hmm.
use some agency on this. What would happen if I needed students? I gave students some information and I said, go show me or create something that demonstrates your understanding of what we just spoke about. Is that a better I
Right.
is that a better form of agency, or is that still being controlled
Hmm.
because they only have the time that they have with you during that
Yeah.
day, and you're
That
the
would
one.
be the problem. Yeah. Because you're fifth period. If you're fifth period, you have 45 to 55 hour a day designated, and that's it. And after that, as a teacher, I've got the next period to worry about, and I give them that time too. So it's very few opportunities to actually expand on the schedule or tell the teacher, hey, I want to go home and work on this on my own for a few days and come back. Can I do that? There's no procedure for that. It's sort of like, well, I can't encourage you to be absent. And, you have other classes. It doesn't give them a lot of agency at all. Very,
Right.
very strict. Yeah.
But we did talk about an alternative program. I don't remember how long ago, but I
Yeah.
remember this. It popped up in my brain where we sort of had a free float, where if we're an alternative school, and let's say I need you to understand X. Now show me that you understand X, and then
Yeah.
you're with me. And if you choose to spend 3/4 of the day with me working on that, but you're still responsible for these other courses where you're supposed to be demonstrating for mastery, you have an
Yeah.
allotment of time and you choose how you're going to use that allotment in order to fulfill your duties, I suppose, for the student. So
Right.
let's say that they spend 75% of the day with you and 10% of the day with somebody else and 15% of the day with somebody else.
Right.
They're going to have to use more time with other people and less time with you in the future in
Yeah.
order to get to where they need to be. But that's all on
Yes.
their shoulders. Is that what
Yeah.
you think we need to be doing? But I don't see how that could happen in a high school setting unless
Hmm.
it's an
Hmm.
alternative school of under 200 students.
Right. Well, we had that sort of program with one program I was with. We said to the kids, you have to earn, I think it was 0.25 credit every 4 weeks. And you could get that in any combination, but it should be well rounded. And usually what they did is they latched onto the content that they liked the most,
Mm-hmm.
and they avoided math and language arts like crazy. But when that would happen, we'd say, hey, listen, we're gonna have to put the skids on you. It's like, we know you're trying to get health and everything else done, but you really need to do some English. There's 4 years of it to be done, so you're going to have to do that too. So you kind of reel them in and teach them how to manage their life. But yeah, they're very independent. They could work on anything they wanted to, as long as they made their credits. It just came to a finite amount toward the end that they had to place in there.
But schools also have broken themselves up into houses, in a sense.
Pardon? Oh
They've
yeah,
broken themselves up into houses. So
kind of.
let's say that
Yeah.
you're teaching the social studies, I'm teaching the English. somebody else is teaching the science, somebody else is teaching the math, and then we have somebody else who teaches the arts and PE or whatever. And so we have, let's say that among our house, we have 150 students. But
Yeah.
let's say that those 150 students can roam freely between teachers to get through what they need to get through, but they have to be able to take care of everything that they need to do with every single teacher successfully. Or if they can't, then maybe they need to be put on a program where they have to, in a sense, be trained, or I hate to use that term, but they have to, they need to understand. How do you get them to understand that this is the way it's supposed to be, that they can't fritter away their time just because they like to spend time with you?
Yeah. Although I didn't mind it, I was the English person, so I was always trying to get them to do English. Most of the time they wanted to go do social studies or computer science and play the computers and things like that. However, we'd say, toward the end, nope, I really need you to stay and do some of my work now.
Mm-hmm.
I know you like doing that other work, but you got to get this done. So you limit them. They're still kids, but it's certainly not as limiting as I'm only available to you on fifth period. Only fifth period. Yeah.
Well, how do you encourage open-mindedness then?
As far as open-mindedness,
that's the third one.
As far as a quality of,
how do we? The third point that I have.
Bias, yeah.
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. How do we encourage open-mindedness, but we give them things that are so biased?
Yeah, because I think it's just we're a product of our society. We're kind of unaware, a lot of us, certain things. One of the things I worked with a guy. He had this famous saying. He'd say, "Are we trying to teach the kids our middle class values?"
Mm-hmm.
I love that when it said that. It's like, you're right. It's a middle class value. Here we are in the suburbs of Portland, Oregon, da da da. And, it's like the fish story, the two fish swimming in water, and one fish says to the other, "Yeah, the water is cold today." And the other fish looks at the fish and says, "What's water?" It's like, you don't know, you're immersed in it.
Right.
You're not aware. Yeah.
But
I have a bone to pick too with when it comes to being biased and prejudiced, especially racially in America. There's a lot of people working very hard to see their biases and things. But lately people say, either you're racist or you're anti-racist. It's like, well, no, I mean, a normal person can be slightly racist. They're swimming in that water. The self-awareness comes. That's a good thing. They don't have to instantly become a zealot for the other side. Like, either you're with us or you're against us. It's a learning process.
And sometimes that zealotry
people don't
only
realize that they're
amplifies what it
in a
is that you're
society that does
combating.
that.
Yeah. It's interesting. But that's a completely different topic. The racism.
Yeah, you become your enemy, basically. Intolerance. It is interesting.
But how often do we?
Yeah,
because I keep hearing people saying,
it's just that, that comes to some people just sort of because they don't understand where they are. Yeah.
But I keep hearing people saying we need to be open-minded. And then you mention, and I'm going to throw this out there, then you mention somebody like Trump. And all of a sudden they're like, no, absolutely not. There is nothing. But I think that the more open-minded way of dealing with it is, let's look at this. Let's look at the phenomenon. Let's figure it out. To say that people are stupid or that they're ignorant
really or really pro
doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
So what are the pros and what are the cons? What are the pros and cons for Biden? What are the pros and cons for Kennedy? What are the pros and cons for Hillary? I mean, look at it And if you can't see it through an open-minded lens, then you shouldn't be talking about inclusivity or open-mindedness at all.
Right.
Because, yes, we all have our biases, but if you're a professional, you need to be able to set those aside. Well, that got you thinking.
Right. You should really know if you're preaching.
Huh? What?
You know, because I mean, I think that, it always does, because I like to think of it as, I don't want to become the other side. You know, whatever side I'm on, per se sides, I think to myself, okay, this argument I'm having against a person, perhaps they're ignorant or they don't understand. Then I go, well, perhaps I'm ignorant and I don't understand. I got to kind of think about it and go, yeah. I mean, instead of taking the high ground and going, well, I know better and you don't, therefore, you don't know. It's like, yeah, that doesn't work either. Even if it
Well,
seems that way, it doesn't work.
I think the role in education is to become Teresian. Now, I
Yeah.
don't know how familiar you are with Sophocles or Tiresias. If you
No,
ever
not
read
a lot,
Oedipus
but
Rex. Oedipus Rex. Okay.
long ago.
Okay. Well, Tiresias was the wise man.
Yeah.
Tiresias had lived and he had become a woman. He had lived life as a woman. He had lived life as a man. And so he was able to see things from different viewpoints. And I think that that is the goal that we as educators should actually have. Because once we start judging other people and we start judging our students, and I worked with people who did that, they would judge the students and they would chastise them and they would be absolutely cruel to some of them because those students didn't look at life the same way that they did. They had different viewpoints.
So they thought.
Well, no, the students would tell them what they believed, and then they would get into. They would have their little things because
I just meant. Yeah.
So,
I mean, underneath it all, we're all kind of the same. I mean,
well, we are.
We disagree on a lot of things. But underneath it all, we're all the same in many ways.
Oh, more so than we are different, I think. Yes.
Yeah, very true. Yeah. If we just focused on that, it's like, well, okay, I disagree with you a little bit.
Okay. So here's an interesting one that came up, and it was valuing cooperation while encouraging competition.
Well, yeah. Yeah. I believe you spoke of a story where, didn't you get called by a parent who was questioning your wisdom? You had a girl working in a group and she's used to getting straight A's, and if she works in the group, she might not get straight A's. Wasn't it like that? There was a complaint. Someone was talking to me about that. It's like it was something like, yeah, well, my daughter gets straight A's and she's going to college, and if she works in a group, she might not get straight A's, in
That's
that
not
class,
me.
and that would ruin her GPA. Okay.
I don't think that was me.
Well, that's interesting. And they were very much against. Oh, I remember who it was now. And they're very much against the kid working with any teams because the kid couldn't control the situation. She's used to, getting those straight A's. And that was not a sure straight A. And from her mind, it's like, what?
Mm-hmm.
She just, get out of my way. I'm on my way to college. See you later. There's no cooperation there at all.
But see, you can use working in a cooperative group as a competition if you wanted to.
Oh yeah, the groups competing against each other. Yeah,
I mean,
but I think she was just scared that they let her down.
I remember I worked on a team for an assessment at the university, and we had to go through. And so they said, which one of us do you think would be the best? I think there were 4 of us, and one of them dropped out. One of us dropped out because we couldn't find them. So they said, who wants to go in and go through and figure out how to assess all these different attributes of this program? And I said, oh, I'd love to try to do something like that. And they said, okay, fine. And so I got in touch with the people. I went there and I found everything. And I thought, oh, I'm just going to screw this up. This is not going to be good at all. And I got it and I figured out a table and I put everything into a table because they had already classified things for me. So I just used what they had and I used those. And then I went and I presented it to the other two people on my team. And they said, this is perfect. And so they said, we're going to tabulate everything that you have and we're going to come up with the rest of it. And I said, well, can I help you? And they said, why? And I said, well, first of all, I want to make sure that this is the best one in the class. And they said, I think it might be. And I said, well, can I be part of that? And they said, sure. So I went in and then they looked at me and they said, we are full-time students. You are not. So we're going to finish this up and then we'll show you what we have next week. And I said, okay, fine. So prior to presenting it in class, they came in and they had bound this report that was, I don't know, it was like 100 and some odd pages with all my tables as huge fold out charts. And they came out and yeah, we won. And so that there's ways of competing that doesn't mean that you have to be like King Cobra or whatever.
Right.
But you can compete
to,
against yourself too.
Yeah. I mean, if you really want to push, and there's a reward for being, the best idea there.
Right. But the other thing
it's just
is
when it's looked at as a competition, though, just because it's a competition, it's like, yeah, that's not really the point.
Mm-hmm. But I think you brought it up that working in groups, in cooperative groups, also helps us understand and be able to realize that in the real world, whatever we encounter in our cooperative groups are going to be like people on our teams at a job.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have people who don't do anything, people who can't do anything. And I hear it from people in the business world all the time. These people are riding everybody else's coattails. I've seen it happen with me where people took credit for work that I had done and they hadn't done anything. And so for me, that's the greatest sin of all, is to do something like that. But it lets you have an understanding so you can start to figure some of that out. But I don't know, cooperation is cooperation. I know that if I'm competing as a team, we're cooperating, but we're still competing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
True.
So you brought up earlier that we are in a bubble and that we're not really working in real life.
Yeah, I mean, school's not in any way reminiscent of real life. Once you get out of high school, it's like, whoa, what is this about? Mm-hmm. And the fact that high school, somehow they always push college, and so say you get out of high school and you float around, get a trade, it's like it's a different kind of life. It's not the bubble anymore. You're scheduling your own jobs, this and that. It's not like life, although college might be like that, a little bit more like the high school experience, and that may be what's attracting a lot of high schoolers to go to college, is just to stay in the school thing, I suppose. But even college is much different than high school.
Well, in college, you have more agency, but I think that you're still, it's something that I call institutionalization. And
Yeah, yeah,
and as you grow up and you're in schools, you have these institutions that coddle you and take care of you, and you know what to expect. You know that the bell, you know what time
yeah.
you're supposed to be there. You go to college, maybe there's
Right.
bells, but as I discovered, you cannot party all night and then make it to an 8 o'clock class in the morning.
No.
You can,
Yeah.
and you have to start taking responsibility for whatever it is that you do, because there's a
Yeah.
cause and an effect. But you still have that institution because you're still being taken care of. You still know what
Yeah.
the expectations are, and you're not necessarily living on your own. You have
No.
opportunities to try to live on your own, but you're still not quite doing that.
Very true. Very true. Yeah, it's very interesting. When you get to college, some people just fall apart from the lack of structure. They just can't handle it. It's like, okay, you're on your own. You got to get to class on your own. You got to do your own thing. And it's like, what? You can't do that? They
And they were
just
four
fall
point.
apart.
They were 4 point in high school. Um,
Maybe, yeah. I just
but I
mostly
did
kids
have,
that go to college right out of high school end up going home at the semester.
I had a roommate
Mhm.
who was in his mid to late 30s. And this is while I was working on my post back, who remained enrolled at university because it allowed him sort of a safety net. It gave him a safety net. He never, he never aspired to have a job.
He just wanted to go to school forever.
That's all he did. And he lived off of grants. He lived off of donations. And he would
Wow.
never leave an institution. He was raised in institutions, and he went to
Hmm.
Oxford and Cambridge. He was going to school here in the States, and he still enrolled at university.
Wow. Huh.
So
That's
it's,
interesting.
so, there is this need that schools fulfill, which is sort of the, I suppose, the nurturing nest or something like that.
Well,
So,
it's easy to figure out. The numbers add up, and okay, this many numbers add to an A, B, C. I mean, I wish I could evaluate my life like that easily. And like, today was an F, and today was an A. It doesn't work that way. Yeah,
but it's
nobody
more
cares
nuanced
either.
than that. It's
Well,
far more
that's true,
nuanced
but
than that.
yeah, I don't know. School. I enjoyed school. I mean, it was like I had it down. Like, yeah, I got the quarter, the semester. You got this going. Yeah, I got
Hmm.
that. Yeah, I had it all nailed. It was very nice when I got out. I'm like, oh, now what?
I remember when I left, people would talk about certain things, and the information that I had from my elective classes would pop out because I had such great professors. I really did have an incredible uh, group of people teaching me. And I remember being watching TV, and on the news, they would pop up, and
Yeah, I've seen
and
some
I'd
of my
think,
old profs on the news and stuff here.
holy cow, these
Yeah,
people really were people who were experts in their field. And that just
yeah,
really got me going too. Okay,
yeah. That happened to me as well.
moving on.
It's yeah. What's the next thing? Geez, there's so many things. Go.
There are so many things. Okay, they talk about well being and mental
Hmm.
health, and they create incredible stress. Teachers are
Yeah.
supposed to be creating a safe zone for students, are supposed to be taking care of X, Y, and Z at the same
Hmm.
time that parents, schools, and administration are crushing them,
Hmm. Yeah.
and they're not allowed to have mental health. Many are not allowed to have mental health days. In fact, some districts go after teachers who take a mental health day. So it's all pretty
Mm.
preposterous that we care about our teachers, we care about our staff. How often do administrators come in and just take over for a teacher because the teacher's having a bad day? Or maybe it's just kind of the admin wants to teach and comes in and says,
Right.
"Oh, what are you teaching today? Would it be okay for me to come in and just do that?" There's something about building morale and creating a sense of well being amongst everybody in the building rather than an us versus them. And as long as teachers
Well,
feel
yeah.
that it's an us versus them, be it teachers versus the students versus the admin versus the parents,
Yeah.
it's all going to go to hell in a handbasket pretty quickly.
It's interesting. There's a lot of ego sometimes in teaching. Oh, surprise. But yeah. And then they just mess with you. There are some people that just come into your life or your classroom and mess with you. And it's like, I want to talk to you about what you're using. What I've been using for 5 years, like that story. It's like, okay, well, it's great for the standards. Did you know that I use it on purpose? I don't just it's not my favorite kind of thing. It's like that when I get questioned as a teacher by someone who doesn't know anything about teaching, that creates an unsafe environment for me. That's like I don't have time to explain to you how to do my job.
Mm-hmm.
And you should respect that instead of trying to meddle with me. And that it just screws you over. I said that so many times. Like you don't know what you're talking about. It
It's
is,
true.
yeah, it
It's
was, and the
true.
stress was unbelievable because we're supposed to be a team. Are we a team? No, you're the last person I want to be on a team with. It's like holy cow, yeah. It. There's not a lot of camaraderie sometimes, so and that adds to some stress. And then when people gang up, sometimes that happens too.
Mm-hmm.
The coffee clatch. We all know what we're talking about here. People, if you're an independent teacher or kind of a free thinker, they're kind of targeting.
Oh, you are. You are.
You're targeted.
I
Yeah.
have never I have never seen more bullying than I've
Yeah.
seen
Yeah. Yeah.
by teachers against other teachers.
That's a good word. It's actually bullying. It's yeah.
Teachers bullying
Well, like that
teachers
situation.
is it's rampant. There is the in
Yeah.
click. It's really funny. I had dinner the other night with another teacher who I used to work with, and we were just talking, and they put in another perspective on the bullying group. And it really made me chuckle. And I just kind of let it
Well,
go. And because this teacher was somebody who kind of saw it, and I mentioned something and they lost it. And I realized they're just people. They're just people. There's nothing big or great about these people, but they go around because they're weak. And bullies are so insecure, and
yeah.
that's why they
That's the
pick on
root
other
of it.
people.
That's the root of it. If you're insecure, really, in a deep sense of what you are or what you believe in, you end up bullying. It's one of the defenses. I'll get you before you get me.
Yeah,
A real secure person will just, even if they wildly disagree with you, they'll listen to everything you have to say. Yeah.
definitely. Okay, I'm going to throw this one,
Uh-huh.
and that is emphasizing. We good? Okay,
Really good. My microphone just dropped. Pardon.
mic drop.
Yeah.
Okay, emphasizing lifelong learning while
Oh,
discouraging any form of
yeah.
divergent thought everything is geared towards the test. How
Yeah.
do you
Mm.
encourage lifelong learning? I think that should be a topic that we bring up.
Yeah. Well, curiosity is the root of it.
How do you encourage
Um,
curiosity at the secondary level? How do you
well,
build
hey,
on that and make sure that it can go with the students?
one of the things that always bugged me just right down at my core was when people said, I studied all night the night before that test, and I took the test, and I tell you, I can't remember a dang thing I studied to this day. And I'm like, well, then, that's interesting. You didn't learn a thing. You just sort of accommodated the act, didn't you? Do you know why you were in school, or is it just a formality to you? It was so weird. You're bragging about that?
See, the funny
That's
thing
not a
is,
skill.
what the way that I learned how to take tests, and
Yeah.
I taught students, because when I did academic therapy, that's what I did. I taught them how to take tests and how to study for
Mm.
tests.
Yeah.
And it's really
Yeah.
simple.
There's-
It's very simple. And it doesn't take that long to do. And you can do it with a friend. You play, let's say, pick a talk show, and you go on that talk show, and they're going to talk about your,
Mm.
what do they call, review sheet? Is that what they call them? The
Uh,
you
what's
know,
the review sheet
the review
that we?
sheet. It's been so long since I've given a test like
Oh,
that.
the answer sheet.
No, it's not the answer sheet.
Or
It's the terms
oh,
and everything else
oh, an
that you need.
outline, a review outline, or something
Yeah,
like that.
the review
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
before the test. So
Yeah. Okay.
so you go through that and you look at it and you pretend that, let's say that you're on Conan O'Brien, and Conan looks at you and says, "Okay, Philip, tell me what stoichionomy is." And
What a
you
tracheotomy is.
stoichionomy.
Okay. What a tracheotomy is. Oh,
And so you say, you come up and you talk and you do it out loud, because you do it in a
yeah.
couch, you're very comfortable, and you just present what you know about stoichionomy. And then you stop and you look at your notes and you say, I hit this, but I forgot this.
Right.
So you make a note of that. And that's something you need to study. It's learning about what it is that you do know and focusing on what you don't or what you can't remember. And so I used to have my
That is,
students look at each other and they would interview each other. And that's how they would study for a test. My job was not to catch the kids. I was not going to
yeah.
do a bell curve. I wanted my students to succeed. I wanted them to understand what it was. Hence, it was very rare that I ever gave them a multiple choice test. The tests were essay tests because I wanted to know what they knew. And they could easily explain it. So, okay, promoting digital literacy while restricting technology use.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think we were speaking earlier, and you had said that, well, the kids are far more literate than the teachers are. I
They
thought,
are.
wait a minute, that's so true. Yeah, they are. They're much more literate. Yeah. And teachers are so fearful of the chat GPT. What are they going to cheat? They're going to learn that they're going to give it the essay and prompt, and it's just going to write their essay. It's like, yeah, and you read that essay, you're going to never in a million years believe that Kathleen wrote it. It's like when AI writes an essay, it's pretty clean, it's pretty standard, it's pretty monotone.
It's sterile. The one thing that you
Yeah,
need to
it's
look at
sterile.
too is that it will start off the test or the paper by saying, this is a complex and very nuanced discussion. So if it ever
I
says
noticed that.
anything about nuance and complex answers, discussion, whatever, you know that's coming most likely from AI.
From AI. Yeah, yeah, there's just so many ways you can spot it. Yeah. High school writers just aren't that good.
But even if there was an article the other day that I read where even if you can figure out the AI algorithm and you're able to catch them, students are still going to cheat. That's
Oh,
half the fun. Students love to cheat. They really do. Can I
yeah.
get away with it? And sure, their parents are going to back them up, a lot of them, because their
Yeah.
parents want them to have the grades. And how dare you accuse my kid of doing something
Yeah.
that awful?
Awful.
Do you
Uh,
realize
uh,
parents would, this was probably about 20, 30 years ago. I remember listening to it on the radio. They did a poll of parents who preferred that their students were cheaters rather than they have one cigarette.
well, there's a false choice. Those are my only two choices?
Would you
Cheating or
rather your
cigarette smoking?
child would you rather
Yeah.
your child was caught smoking a cigarette or caught cheating? They said caught cheating
Not cheating.
because cigarettes are
Well, I
so
mean, if you're
bad for
caught
you.
smoking, well, and they're so addictive, actually. I mean, I don't know, unless you're addicted to cheating, you're not gonna probably, you're not gonna cheat a pack a day in the future.
But I have a lot of parents
Yeah.
who smoke the ganja with their kids.
Oh, well, that's not
And that's
eh.
still as bad.
Yeah, that's not good.
So,
That's yeah.
that
That's
in itself
inappropriate
is
in
a
a way.
bit of a hypocrisy, right? Okay. What
Yeah.
about preparing for college while not addressing trade skills?
Yeah, we talked about this every freaking show. No, it's like there's like trade schools just don't exist. It's for like, those kids who can't make it in college. It's like, what the heck?
They don't want to go to college.
Yeah, they don't want to. And it's not looking like a great investment anymore for many reasons. So, yeah, if you're looking for a profession, trying to make some money, like working with your hands, there's all kinds of trades. Good money.
Well, yeah. Yeah. And there's really good money in it.
Yep.
I had a
Pays
student,
goodly.
one of my students who graduated 2 years ago is buying his first house.
Jeez.
Didn't go to college, had no interest in going to college.
Went to trade school.
Didn't go to trade school. Well, yeah,
What,
did go to
what,
trade school. But the thing
he got
is,
some kind of trading.
well, he knew how to save money too. He had financial
Oh,
literacy.
yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, and that's not taught.
No.
That's not
So
taught in school anymore.
I think that would probably go under not teaching about the real world.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, if you leave college or leave high school not knowing how to like balance a checkbook or something or balance a bank account. Mm.
Or do your taxes.
Yeah, the taxes. I remember doing my taxes in high school.
I cannot count the number of times I've had students who've graduated who come in to sit down with me to do their taxes.
Ugh,
So I guess that was on me
charge them.
too. But
Yeah,
that was
I'd
not
charge
part
them.
of the curriculum that we taught,
Yeah,
but it became closer to that.
yeah. It's useful information from the very start.
Yeah, definitely. And usually at that point, they're just doing the 1040 easy, which is a real simple formula to deal with.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, if you're young, you're not really going into investments and mortgage payments and things like that. So,
Right,
ugh,
right.
ugh,
So, what about healthy habits and they serve unhealthy foods, vending
that's true.
machines,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
don't?
Grade.
What
Go
about the
ahead.
kids who refuse to participate in PE?
Yeah, there's that. They make them walk. They make them do something, but they're always fighting to do it. So, yeah, there's always a group that does not want to do PE. But they're always encouraging it. So that they're getting a little better at that.
You think
A
so?
little better. But it's better than the food. You know, like, yeah, eat the better foods, but eat here at the cafeteria. And it's pretty much kind of standard starches and such like that. They try to do the old vegetables, but they're usually canned.
Yeah.
Kids are like, yeah, I don't want that. Yeah, put some sugar on it. Ranch dressing.
Ranch dressing with their
dressing.
pizza.
Yeah, anything. You can eat anything with ranch. Sand in ranch dressing.
Definitely.
It'll work.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. But you know what? We have so many that are in here that we can't get to them. But what do you, as an audience, think are things that we left off our list?
Ugh.
We got through quite a few. But what are some that really stick in your craw? Let us know. So, next week, we'll be back with another episode. And so, until then, Philip, thank you.
Thank you.
And
Aloha.
Aloha. And until then, keep your feet on the ground while you reach for the stars. Adios.
Mm.